Wine to Five is partially funded by Albarello Luxury Hand Soap, an unscented must-have accessory for anyone who loves wine, cooking, and food. For more information, visit albarellosoap.com.
It's not 5 o'clock, and they don't care. Welcome to Wine to Five. Entertainment, education, and everyday drinking for everyday people. Your hosts are Valerie Caruso and Stephanie Davis, two wine educators who don't need a clock to know when to pour that next glass.
Welcome back to another episode of Wine to Five. This week, we're going to do things a little bit differently.
Yes, but so let's just get going. Let's get our guests introduced right away and start tasting wines, hearing their story, and having some fun.
We're talking today with Bright Cellars founder and CEO Richard Yao and Christie Lowe, Director of Operations. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourselves, a little bit about Bright Cellars before we start grilling you with questions here.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Richard. I am the co-founder and CEO of Bright Cellars. We started the company, which I'm sure we'll hear all about, 2.5 years ago in Boston. So I'm actually a MIT grad. I didn't study wine, and this is something that we really fell into about 3 years ago with my co-founder, Joe.
Yeah, and then I'm Christie. I'm the Director of Operations. I was the 4th employee at Bright Cellars, so I started with them about 6 months in. It's been about 2 years since then. It's been a lot of fun.
Very cool. Well, tell our listeners about Bright Cellars and what makes it different from other wine clubs.
Yeah, sure. So Bright Cellars, we are the personalized monthly wine subscription. So how it works is that our members come to our site and take our short quiz, and based on their responses, we match them to 4 bottles of wine a month. And the way it works is that with each bottle that you try, you can give it your own rating, give us feedback on that bottle, and what that does is that powers our wine matching algorithm. So it basically helps us get smarter at matching you individually in the future. But what it also does is give us sort of instructions for how to find the best wine for the subscription, and to really go out there and look for wine that our members are interested in.
Now, the algorithm is something we are particularly interested in. We've had a Master of Wine on this show, Tim Hanai, and he developed a very similar questionnaire about phenotypes, and it helps people match themselves to wine. More importantly, he's an advocate for people who like sweet wines. I'm kind of curious about a couple things about your questionnaire and your algorithm and how that works. Could you talk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So the questions are not related to wine, but what we're doing is finding a starting point for your palate. Speaking to when we got into wine, we actually took a couple wine classes at BU, sort of did at Boston University when we were in Boston, and sort of came out of that, learning how to do tastings and, tasting a dozen wines per class and saying, okay, what's the body, acidity, astringency, alcohol level, all these sort of things that we're tasting as people studying wine, and realize that those are preferences that we think we can really attribute to our individual members. So how the algorithm works is that we try to find a starting place for you, and you'll get your wines. But then after that, we really use your feedback, and so we can actually get a sense of what your preferred sort of acidity or sweetness, being the big one that you mentioned, is. And what we're discovering is that people are all over the board as far as what type of wines they're interested in. So, you can kind of think like there are people who are only interested in white wines with some residual sugar, so some sweetness. And then we'll find people who absolutely don't like wines like that and are interested primarily in, say, like full-bodied, dry, high tannin red wines. So I think we're finding customers that are interested all across the board. And what's fun for us is that we're involved in finding these wines too. So what we've been able to do is feature a lot of wines that you wouldn't otherwise, pick up off the shelf. Wines in regions that don't get a lot of marketing or a lot of hype from experts.
Going back to your algorithm, and the wines that you match to people. About how many of these wines do you guys have at any given time to select from?
Yeah, sure. So we rotate every month, and a lot of the things that we get are kind of on a as they're available basis. We'll match from anywhere between, it depends really on how quickly new members are coming in, but between, say, 25 and upwards of 40 to 50 wines that we're matching from. Wow. And I think there's there's an interesting distribution there too. It's, there are some, for example, I mentioned sort of customers that are interested in, white wines with residual sugar. We don't have to keep it we need sort of the right quantity to match, but there are a lot more people who are interested in something with a little bit more of like a medium-bodied, red wine type of profile. So we kind of, sort of track where everyone is, and based on that, kind of do our sourcing as a response to what customers are looking for. So, yeah.
I'm just curious, how many of those customers are fitting into that and answering that question that Val talked about, surprise me? How many of these customers are really adventurous?
Yeah, it turns out, I think I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I want to say about 70% between that one and the sort of, I actually know, it's 70%. So the majority of people.
Yeah. So the question is something like, what kind of wines would you like us to match you to? And there's three options. One is just kind of give me the ones that you think will be the best fit. One will be give me the best ones, but maybe throw in a surprise. And the last one is surprise me and let's see what we can find.
Yeah. And between the occasional surprise and surprise me, pretty much 70% of people, I think, maybe even a little bit higher than that. I haven't looked at that recently, but what we've sort of realize is that also gets you kind of in the mode to try new things. It's a little bit of a reminder that it's hey, this is not going to be, a California Pinot Noir necessarily, though we have had those. It's sort of, you're going to be able to try something a little bit off the beaten path.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that the kind of wine drinker that's looking at Bright Cellars already has some adventure, in their heart anyway, because otherwise they would just go out and buy what they knew that they liked, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that probably aligns with, you finding the perfect customer anyway. But getting back to the questions, tell us where you guys source these wines and what kind of, tell our listeners the variety of wines to choose from. I know you talked about how there's 25 to 50 different kinds of wines at any given point, but give us some examples.
Yeah, sure. So as we've scaled, we actually just passed 15,000 members, and that's really changed. Thank you. Yeah, and I think as we've scaled, really our opportunities have increased. I think early on we were very much working at sort of the distributor level to kind of get as many options as necessary to cover the whole field. Now we're pretty much sourcing from every major winemaking region of the world. So, we have Australia, New Zealand, Italy, France, Chile, Argentina, of course, the United States and South Africa. So we've really been able to open up to sort of international offerings. And I think we've done everything from, stuff you might see like a Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc to interesting sort of opportunities coming out of Chile and Argentina. So it's interesting to sort of, see. I think when we look at the international wine market, Argentina, it's a lot of Malbec. Chile, it's Carmenere, I guess, but really a lot of Cab, a lot of Bordeaux varietals. But I think we've also been able to do interesting opportunities, like we've done a Sangiovese and an Aglianico from Puglia. So southern Italy doesn't really make it to the U.S. very much, at least in the volume that we're doing, and that's kind of they've been exciting for us because it's opened up doors, with customer base the size it is, it's opened up doors to do some more interesting, fun stuff.
And it is just a coincidence that I'm drinking your Borrasca Aglianico from Puglia right now.
Oh, fantastic.
It's kind of nice. I had a little bolognese sauce last night and opened this bad boy, and it is rocking, and that's what I have in my glass right now. Mm-hmm. And the label's really catchy, and the wine is delish. But let's get back to professionally and personally. You mentioned you took a couple of classes in Boston about wine, but what tied what you learned at MIT to the wine world? What was it that made that connection for you?
I think most of our customers, and you mentioned, that they're choosing the adventurous option. And what we found is that first, I should talk a little bit about our customers. We have a lot of newer wine drinkers. So very similar, I would think, to, when we started this business, I was 25. I knew about craft beer. I didn't know a whole lot about wine, but it was something that I really wanted to learn. And I think that's true for a lot of our team. I think that's true for Christie when she joined. Most of our team did not come from the wine world, and it was something that we just really wanted to learn more about, but it wasn't the easiest thing to do. Being sort of the sort of nerds that we are, we're like, okay, let's go take a class and take some exams and, show up for 3 hours a week and do it that way. And that made complete sense for us. But we really wanted to figure out whether we can bring a educational, fun, personalized experience to people like us, and to make it easy. So I think that's something that has really been our passion with Bright Cellars, is that we know that most people are where we were 2.5, 3 years ago, but would love to become interested and learn about wine, and don't necessarily have the time to take a couple semesters of classes the way that we did, but hopefully through Bright Cellars they get to try some wines that they otherwise would never try, and also learn in a fun way.
When I was making some notes to myself about this experience, because Val and I both got a shipment of your wine to try, and that we'll be drinking on the show today. But one of the things that really resonated with me is that your Bright Cellars Wine Club really is the everyday drinking for everyday people that Val and I have as our tagline. And it is a beginner wine club. I mean, not that we as wine industry professionals aren't enjoying it, because we definitely are. But, it's affordable, and it's nice that there's such a selection where people learn and it's not intimidating. And so I can see why you guys have the growth and the customer base, because I think, people are like, I want to learn, but I can't take a class. I don't have the time, or I'm not sure I really want to commit to that, but they're drinking wine, and that means that the wine world is growing. The more people who are drinking, the more wine that's going to be out there. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think what's really fun for us is that all of our bottles are $15 bottles. So they're a step above what you would find on sale at the grocery store, but they're still not inaccessible. So it's still really high quality wine, and especially because we have as many members as we do, we can get all sorts of variety, but we can introduce people, newer wine drinkers, to different kinds of wine. So I think what's really fun is when we hear from somebody who'll say, oh, I've never tried a Malbec, I never thought about it, but I love Malbec, this is my new favorite. And I think that's really cool for us and for them too.
Yeah, that is great. And to get back to the questions, I think it's really interesting to hear how you guys put your team together. So tell us a little bit more about the evolution of the Bright Cellars team.
Yeah, sure. So Christie mentioned she was the fourth employee for the team. We actually started the business in Boston. We were living, Joe, my co-founder, and I were living there after graduation. We were both working for early stage startups as early employees. And 4 years into that, we decided it was time to start our business, that we had knew what we wanted to do and knew that we had the skill set to take a good shot at it. So we started Bright Cellars in Boston, and actually very key to our success was we were accepted into a startup accelerator, which is called Generator. So Generator is a 3-month-long program where it's like, think of it as like startup boot camp with 5 other companies. And they invested in us and also brought us into their network of mentors and advisors and all that. And that really catalyzed our growth as an e-commerce wine company. So that program was actually based out of Wisconsin, where our headquarters is located now. And so at the end of that program, we raised a $2 million round that was actually led by CSA Partners, which is a venture capital firm that's based here in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, where our offices are. And basically everything sort of came together. So during that program, that was when we made our next 3 hires, and they all happened to be hires that were living in Wisconsin. So we said, hey, let's build the business here. Not the most traditional place to start either a wine company or a venture-backed startup, but we've loved it so far. We actually just moved into a larger office here, and this is our actually first day in our new office, and we're loving it. So we've really been able to build the team locally here with the University of Wisconsin system, and we have a number of engineers and wine concierges who work with our members that are from UW-Madison and UW-Milwaukee. So we've been able to build our team through the network that we were brought into here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
That is so cool.
Actually, while you were answering, I forgot I was following you on Twitter, so I was just kind of stalking some of the appearances that you've made recently and some of the other interviews and stuff. I'm like, oh, wow, this dude, he gets around. And definitely in the entrepreneurial circles, you guys know what I mean. Entrepreneurial circles, but I didn't realize that you were doing the Wine Industry Expo.
Oh, yeah. We were out there. That was just, it feels like a couple weeks ago. I guess it was the second of December.
Yeah, but I was going to ask you about what's coming up. It's 2017. I know we talked to Christie a little bit. We talked about your cheese club and some other things you guys got going on. So what do you see for 2017 that our listeners might want to check out?
Yeah, so I'll start with talking about the Cheese Club. So we just launched it officially maybe a few months ago. We've been kind of doing some testing up till then, but being in Wisconsin, we have access to all sorts of incredible cheese.
Some of like the best cheese in the world.
Yeah, award-winning cheese, all different varieties, a lot of really cool stuff. And so we kind of looked around and thought it made sense. Wine and cheese go together. A lot of people don't have access to these types of cheeses, so we put together a wine club. So we have some really cool cheeses, and we'll pair. You can either do the cheese subscription on your own if you're just really into cheese, or we can pair it with your wines and send it as a pairing, which is a lot of fun too.
And you said all those cheeses are Wisconsin cheeses.
They're all coming from Wisconsin.
Yeah, and we actually didn't set out to necessarily have them all come from Wisconsin, but as we thought of kind of what kind of cheeses we want and looked for things, every single thing we wanted we could find around here. It's Dairyland. There's just a ton of awesome cheese here.
You know what I like about that is that I like how you guys are supporting your community locally, like with these cheeses and with employees and talent and the university. I just want to say that's a really cool thing that you guys are doing. So
thanks.
Kudos.
I think it's been, I think when we first said, hey, let's go check out Wisconsin for 3 months, we had no idea what we were getting into. And when we got here, we just loved it. It's just a fantastic place to start a company. It's not I don't think it's at the top of anyone's list as far as where you might start a company, but everyone here has been so welcoming and ready to support us.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I don't know if you guys have an embarrassing or funny wine story that has to do with Wisconsin, but we'd love for you to share some silly stories with us. Maybe one from each of you. It's just it's part of our show, and every guest we have on, we ask them the same question, and it really is something that our listeners count on. So Val and I get a kick out of it, too, because we have a lot of embarrassing stories of our own. So then nobody feels alone out there having embarrassed themselves in doing something with wine or, in the food and wine hospitality industry.
Yeah.
Well, we were trying to think of a few that were PG rated, so we came up with at least one.
I'll give you some time to think of your own. So this one's a little bit nerdy, but it was very recent. We have a number of people in the office that are either studying for the intro SOM exam or the certified SOM exam. So one of the big components of that is opening a sparkling wine. We were doing a little holiday dinner a few weeks ago, and my co-founder Joe had purchased a double magnum of Prosecco. I don't even know where he found it. I've never seen a double magnum of Prosecco in the wild. But anyways, he brought it to the holiday dinner, and we said, okay, somebody's got to open this, the right way. Except the thing is so heavy that you definitely couldn't hold it with one hand. And so we tried doing it, and a number of people tried to do it, and nobody could open it. the cork was stuck. So, of course, it being the holiday dinner by then, we thought it was a good idea to try to saber it. So,
oh, no.
So I think we found the biggest knife, and it took I think it took a good dozen tries, but we got it open, and it's actually posted on I think it's on our Instagram. If you want to check out our Instagram, it's just instagram.com/Bright Cellars. If you want to see what that the Sabre Double Magnum Prosecco looked like, that's up there.
Yeah, and we didn't realize, I guess I thought that you just kind of hit at the cork and eventually it pops off, but it actually takes off the whole top. It breaks the glass. It doesn't shatter it, but it just like comes off there. It did work. It was just funny that we had a whole wine company. There were probably 30 of us at the dinner. And
we were all cheering, but it took a while.
Oh my gosh.
That's a great story, really. I mean, we've all had struggles with these large format bottles. My MO is like, as soon as it's time to open it, I like find somebody to open it. I'm like, I am so not doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't get me started on the wax seals, as Steph.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that you could just. I didn't know that you could just stick the cork in with the wax seal over the cork. I think that's the way you do it, right? So the first time I saw that, I tried to cut it with a knife, and it just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, you want to soften the wax. I had one that was so embedded. I mean, it was so covered. You couldn't even have stuck the corkscrew through it. You couldn't have pulled the cork out. You had to soak it in warm water, and then I hacked at it, and I said, I will never buy another bottle that is so heavily coated in wax at the beginning. I mean, it was like I brought out the Kevlar gloves. I thought somebody's going to get cut. I mean, but yeah, the trick is, I believe, to soak it under warm water. But still, it's really hard. But Christie, what's your story? I'm kind of curious.
Well, I don't know. These are just some short stories, but kind of funny things I just thought of. So working at a wine company, we're also e-commerce, so we all have laptops that we work off of. And I will say that more than one laptop has had to be replaced due to wine spilling on the keyboard, which I think is only a hazard at a wine company.
That's great.
And our other thing is having a cheese club. The phrase "cut the cheese" comes out a lot of times, not intentionally, but kind of like, "Oh, Katie, can you go cut the cheese? We have a party coming," and every time it's funny.
Yeah.
So you'd think we'd be a little more mature about it, but we still get
the cheese puns are never ending. If you want to do another segment about cheese, we can bring Katie, our cheese manager, and I think she has some T-shirts going on too.
Oh my God!
Oh, I want one of those T-shirts.
Yeah, the big cheese. I can see it already, and I think it's interesting also because having stalked you guys before interviewing your co-founder Joe that you mentioned earlier, Lorendi, he has a unique wine pairing that is underrated. Wine and work, and we are so down with that.
That is what we're all about here.
And I'm guessing that you guys have a great place to work. It sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds like the company to work at in 2017. So
yeah, it is a lot of fun, and we're in an office building. It's called Ward 4, and there's a few different spaces around down the hallway, and I think we're the most popular office. We have a lot of people coming in. They say just to chat, and somehow they always migrate towards the wine.
Yeah.
I can't blame them.
Well, speaking of the fun you guys are having, where can our listeners, if they want to interact with you guys online, where can they connect with you? And also, where are we going to see you out and about this year in 2017?
So as far as connecting with us, so going to our website, Bright Cellars, BRIGHT, and then Cellars as in a wine cellar, CELLARS, and then /wine25 spelled out, so wine, TWOFIBE, will take you straight to our website. You can take the quiz from there, and it will also get you 50% off on your first shipment just for your listeners.
Oh, thank you for that. That is really awesome. And now where can we find you guys?
So we spend a good amount of time in California, so you might come across us. I will just kind of put this out there only as a teaser. We are working on some in-person experiences, so we've learned a ton about our customers, and initially we said, hey, let's work with winemakers with all this data, and now we're very curious about both in-person sort of tasting experiences that can take advantage of the algorithm and the data that we've collected. And we're also very interested in being more influential in the wine that's being made, because at this point we're breaking it down to saying, hey, this is a wine that could work better if it was a little higher in acidity, or had a little bit less residual sugar, a little bit more, that type of thing. And that's both those areas. I think we're very interested in bringing that into an in-person experience. That's all I got as far as a teaser, but I think we'll be able to, right now, the entirety of the business is e-commerce, is online, but we're interested in exploring some in-person experiences as well.
You know, one last thing I want to get you guys to mention is where people can connect with you on social media, Instagram and all of that, so your handles.
Let's see if I know them all off the top of my head. So I mentioned Instagram.com/Bright Cellars is our Instagram, which I think is probably the first place that I would go.
Our Twitter handle is @Bright Cellars. And what else is there? I think Facebook.com/Bright Cellars is probably our page.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
So yeah, and actually our Instagram, our Instagram I think is a lot of fun. So we have a couple of interns here who have kind of really taken to running it, and they have a lot of really fun wine quotes. You probably saw the fun stickers on our bottles that we had wrapped with different wine quotes. So they have a lot more of those and a lot of different photos. So I'd recommend checking it out.
Yep, I'm there right
cool.
now. There we go. So your last post was Sip Happens, the Sip Happens t-shirt, I think. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And and there's my Syrah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Do you guys have anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
One other thing I might add about the team, just because I don't know if this totally flowed together, and Richard sometimes gets shy in talking about it, but so Richard and Joe, in starting the company, they both were students at MIT. They both worked on a couple of different projects together. They were roommates, good friends. Joe actually has a master's in computer science from MIT, which I think is one of the best computer science degrees you can get. I don't know too much about that, but he works on all of the algorithms, so he's really incredible at working on all of that tech stuff. And then Richard and Joe, being good friends, Richard has learned a lot about wine, and that's where he took some of the classes at BU just to learn a little bit more about it. And then from there, they both kind of grew the company and hired their first employee out of Boston, Maria, who's been fantastic, works a lot with our members. She's our director of member experience now, and then kind of rolled out from there. But I think we had mentioned that there's some classes in MIT as well, so just wanted to clarify how the flow goes.
No, that's great.
Yeah, I think this was great.
I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. Oh my gosh, they were so much fun, Steph.
Great energy and lots of, cool things to learn about their business.
Yeah, absolutely. And the wines. I think I'm more impressed with the wines than I thought I would be.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the wines I actually put in my tasting note that this is, exceeds my expectations.
Yeah. Listeners, just to kind of catch you guys up, the people at Bright Cellars were kind enough to send Steph and Val a shipment of 4 bottles. So we went in and took the quiz. We got our shipment. We got our wines. And I'll tell you what, I was pleasantly surprised by the variety of wines. We'll talk about the wines we got. We're not going to sip them and slurp them on the show for you guys today, all because if we slipped and slurped and ate wines, then, we'd be here all day. But we'll talk a little bit. We each have a white and a red in front of us that came from Bright Cellars. We'll talk about those wines a little bit, and we'll talk about the wines that we did get and what we thought. So it'll kind of give you a good idea about Bright Cellars and what they have. So, Steph, I want to hear your experience. Tell us about the 4 wines you got, and tell us what you're sipping and what you love best about them.
Okay, and before I get into these wines, and I'm just going to talk about these 2, but the other 2, full descriptions of my tasting notes will be on the blog. But I have a hashtag wine oops that I confessed to Val, and I think is really funny because I really did open these wines right after they arrived because it's so cute when these wines arrive. I love how each bottle is wrapped in tissue paper with a hilarious little sticker on it. And for me, it makes it feel like each bottle is a present that you get to unwrap. And so I kind of jumped the gun and I opened these wines. And what I did, though, is I kept tasting them as the days went on. So now I know like how many days some of these wines really last opened. And all of the wines you can drink for days, which was very cool. And the other thing I did is I saved some in those little mini like airplane bottles. And that really is like an awesome wine preservation system. You fill the wine all the way up to the tippy top, and then there's no air in there. And so your wine stays drinking great. So anyway, I'm still enjoying the wines now because I had saved them with those little bottles. And the first one, the white wine I'm going to talk about, is from Southeast Australia. And it is the Pana, P-A-N-A, Chardonnay, 2016 vintage. And I just think this wine is what I'd like to say is kind of like a wine for all seasons. This is not like your summer porch pounder. This is not like your, cozy winter Chardonnay. This really is a great Chardonnay that you can drink all year long. It's very balanced. It has some nice limey apple, melon, great first impression. It really exceeded my expectations. And you don't even need food to enjoy it. I'm even having it with some potato chips right now. But it's really nice. And even after being open for 3 or 4 days, it still drinks really nicely.
And I'm guessing there's no oak on it.
You know, it has this kind of a kiss of oak. I mean, there's something about it that tastes rich. I don't know if that's just some malolactic or how they blend in that, but there is a richness to it.
Okay, because I was looking at your tasting notes. I'm like, boy, I don't see anything in there that alludes to oak, but that's cool.
Yeah, there is some richness to it, and it doesn't taste like a stainless steel Chardonnay or unoaked Chardonnay.
So it sounds like it's nicely balanced. Sorry, I'm talking with cheese in my mouth here.
That's okay. Cheese would go great. Maybe the cheese I don't know what kind of cheese I would have with the Chardonnay, but you know what? It would be the cheese that you like to eat.
That's right. Well, she was talking about the cheese club, and it made me hungry. So we took a 5-minute break to come back, and I wanted to open the white wine, and so I just grabbed a plate of cheese. So while you're talking, I'm like nibbling because I haven't had lunch and I didn't have a very big breakfast, and you've got to have something in there. So I'm nibbling on cheese.
And what are you sipping on? And
I'm sipping on the South African white wine that they set in my club. And this is the Ngumu, Ngumu. And this is a 2015 Western Cape South African wine by Lowe Family Vineyards. And it is so good. I poured a decent sized glass, and as you can tell, I have like a couple sips left. I cannot keep my lips off of it. It is absolutely delicious. It is a little bit warmer than refrigerator temperature because I tell people, fridge temperature is too cold. So this is probably a good 55 degrees. It's not as cold as we would drink it in the summer because it's cold and windy here. You can probably hear the wind in the background. But it is absolutely delicious. And I'm drinking it with this blue cheese. And I want to say this is a Costco blue cheese. It is so good together.
Nice.
I can't stop drinking it. I really, really love it. It's got this really nice, almost like a meringue. You know how like a key lime pie or a lemon meringue thing going on? It's really, but it's so floral. It's so pretty. And you've got this one too, didn't you?
I did get that one, and I thought it had some nice creaminess. Like when you just said meringue, I thought, everybody's description of some of these sensations is a little bit different. But, I did feel like it had great texture. It had some greenness that I like in most wines anyway. But I think it mostly got me imagining what I would eat with it. Not necessarily a pairing, but just how it opened up my palate and kind of made me ready to eat. So like almost aperitif kind of a wine where you're like, what do I want to eat now because I'm salivating?
Yeah, I mean, it's not overly complex at all, but there's enough interest there that has me putting my nose back in the glass and sipping again and again, and I'm not looking for anything. I'm just enjoying every little... Yeah, and I can see where you've got a chicken salad here would be really good, some Asian food. This is delicious. So that's the wine.
And I also thought it was a great wine that you could do kind of a wine spritz with, where you put just a little bit of club soda or sparkling mineral water, and make it a little less alcoholic, and people like that.
Man, I am digging on this like nobody's business. But tell us about your red.
Okay, the red is a Copio Syrah, and that's from Spain, and it's the 2015 vintage. And I think you've got this one too, right, Val?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay, cool. I thought the most striking thing was the color. I loved the color. It's very alluring, vibrant, has a dark, deep color. The aromatics really jump out of the glass. Super uber fruity, raspberry, blackberry, medium tannins, and easy drinking. You don't have to have food to enjoy it, although I was imagining some, a nice filet with some blue cheese crumbled.
Girl.
Maybe your blue cheese over there.
Oh.
And then I gotta go find a filet, and then we could get together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I served that to some friends and my Justin, and yeah, totally thumbs up from a group. So, and also, like the Chardonnay, drinking very nicely, even after 3-4 days. So I personally feel like this bottle benefits from some decanting or aerating, or even just, a couple of days being open. I did like that. I do think it added to some kind of optimal smoothness of the wine. But yeah, I thought that was also a winner.
Yeah.
What about you? What have you got for red?
Well, I have not opened the Spanish Syrah. I went straight for the Borrasca Aglianico 2015 from Puglia, of course, Italy, the land of my people. And I love the label. It's so pretty. We'll post pictures of it. Actually, I think we did post some pictures somewhere. But Borrasca means like a storm at sea. And what really surprised me, I saw Aglianico 2015, and I thought, Aglianico is really not something that you drink right away. A lot of times. In its youth. And this is very, very easy to drink. And, I think there's definitely some kind of process that goes on here that makes it easy to drink. It goes down so easy. I opened it last night with a bolognese sauce I made. And it was very, very lean bolognese with like 96%.
Did you put some of the wine in there?
I had a different wine. I had a Petite Syrah open, and so I was just dumping that in there. But then I decided, you know what? I really want to taste this wine by itself. So I opened it, started sipping it while I was cooking and dumping the Petite Syrah in the sauce. And I was like, man, this is so easy to drink. I would have still not gotten a whole lot of Italy on the nose. Okay. It's very New World in its style. It's still got a little complexity there, but I would have not gone that rustic Italian thing. So I think this is something that would be a nice introduction to the regions of southern Italy, like Richard was saying, and even the Aglianico grape, and then kind of like ease you into the more complex as we get into the terrazzi and those kind of things. And I love this wine. I'm like, the bottle's like, as you can see, half gone now, and it's just after noon, and it works really nice with this blue cheese as well. It also works with the New Zealand cheddar I have in front of me. So I'm really...
Yeah. That sounds great. What's cool about that, as an introduction to the grape, then somebody's like, okay, now I'll go seek that out and be... more familiar than just taking a risk on something that they don't know what it is. So that's cool. Another thing that you said that I hadn't really thought about, but my Syrah from Spain, which, those two things don't always go together.
Right.
It isn't an old world style. I don't feel like I was drinking Spanish wine, but it still is fun. to experience that expression, you know, in a different way, you know, and to see how Syrah can be approachable and fun and Spanish, you know, so that's cool.
Absolutely. So what else did you get? You got the Chardonnay, you got the Chenin, you got the Spanish Syrah. What was your fourth wine from the Bright Cellars folks?
Yeah, so I got 3 whites and 1 red. I had another Chenin Blanc from California.
Okay.
And just in my preference, I preferred the Chenin Blanc from South Africa. I thought it was more nuanced and a little bit more interesting. Now, it doesn't mean that the Chenin Blanc from California, called Harena Maurice, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of people who would really like it. I mean, it was so easy to drink and more of like a porch pounder, you know, more of something that you drink it because it's, you know, cold. It's hot outside and you need a cold glass of wine, you know.
That's what I might make my spritzer with.
Yeah.
But here's what's cool about that, and this is what I think Bright Cellars does really well. So looking at the wines that Steph received from Bright Cellars, she could actually go in to their website and rate the wines based on her preference.
Exactly.
And then they adjust what you get the next month. So, I mean, you got bottles that were $15 or more. Actually, the Chenin Blanc I've seen online for actually more than $15. So you're getting a really great deal, first of all. And then the next month, or however you sign up to do it, they would adjust that. And it sounds like they're really kind of getting into the way the wine's being made. They've got some people in Santa Rosa helping them with the wines and stuff now. They adjust that. And I really like that. Not a lot of wine clubs do that.
Right. And I like that too. And, you know, it would be maybe a miracle if all of the wines, you know, I thought, oh, I can't rate them, you know, because I like them all the same. I mean, it makes it very realistic that I got a selection of wines that I liked a few of them. You know, this one in particular, I would say, you know, this is I don't prefer this style. And then then I look forward to the next shipment of like, okay, what did they do to tweak it this next shipment, you know? And yeah, I think that is great rather than just being some random wines that they just pick every time they ship. You know, now it really does feel like it's personalized.
And I like how you can actually go in, you can rate the wines, whatever. And I used to work for a company, they had a wine club, which was kind of cool. And they did something that was very similar to what Bright Cellars does. Let's say you didn't like that wine altogether. They replace it.
Oh, yeah, right.
And I like that too. So let's say you got something, it was either corked or maybe it was just like, oh, wow, that's just not my bag or whatever. They do work with you to replace it, and I really like that too. But this is so much more personalized than any wine club I've ever seen.
I'm happy with it, totally happy with it, and, you know, even happy with the labels and the presentation, the customer service, the questionnaire. I think a lot of things flowed. It was relatively easy, you know. I think
I like the energy of the company a lot too. I think it's a company that it would be fun to be involved with.
Right.
Not only from a professional perspective, but also as from a customer perspective. It's just kind of like your squad, your wine squad, especially when they get the cheese program going.
Oh, yeah, the cheese thing has me sold.
Yeah. Oh, my fourth wine.
Okay, so tell us about your red.
Okay, so my fourth wine. So, of course, I got the Chenin that you got. I got the Pugliese. I got 3 reds. Pugliese Aglianico.
Oh, you got 3 reds, and I got 3 whites.
I don't prefer white wines.
That's
I'm very picky with my white wines, and that's why. So, I kind of, knowing what we know about Tim Hanai and about some of these questions that come up in the algorithms, and knowing what I know, I'm not going to say I hacked it. I didn't hack it, but I also wanted to make sure I didn't get a lot of white wine.
Right.
So I made sure I answered the questions to get kind of what I wanted. So, yeah. And so I only got 1 white wine, which was a Chenin. And then the 4th wine I got was the Zinsane 2014 Lodi Zinfandel. And on the back it says, whoa, that's crazy, baby. Trained, cultured, and crafted from scratch with love There's a Vino Ego by William T. I don't know, I can't read it. But I have to post a picture of the bottle. It's a very, very rich wine here. I'll have to post some notes from it. And I'm looking for the alcohol content on this bad boy. 14.4. And yeah, so I love that I got 3 from out of the country, which is mostly what I drink. And I got 1 domestic, which is mostly what I drink just minimally. So they actually nailed in this selection what is in my cellar right now.
And you said you were picky on your whites, and they seem to do pretty well with that.
They nailed the white. Very picky on my whites. You know, I stick to certain whites from certain parts of the world, like Oregon Pinot Gris I love, Chenin's from South Africa I love, a lot of most French whites I love, a lot of Northern Italian whites I love, and some Southern, some Spanish. But they nailed the parts of the world where I love to get my wines from, the styles of the wines I usually like. I like a little bit more earth, I will say. I like a little bit more old world style. I don't think a lot of Americans do. But if you look in my cellar, I would say I have mostly what I have. 75% of what I have is from Italy, France, South Africa, everywhere else, Spain. And then I have a little bit of California and Oregon in there, some Colorado in there. And then as far as domestic, maybe 25%. But I would say they nailed it. And I'm surprised. I don't know why I'm surprised. It's just I'm so skeptical of everything. So yeah. I will say to Bright Cellars, they did a heck of a job with these selections. I love their business model. And I would definitely recommend this. And I think this would be a great gift. If you're not going to do it yourself, I would recommend sending somebody at least a 3-month membership of this. And then hashtag W25 challenge it up. I love what they're doing there.
Yeah, it's fun. I've never had, this Syrah from Spain, that was definitely like a hashtag W25 challenge for sure.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's very, very cool.
Yeah. So I think that's it.
Cheers to those guys. Bright Cellars.
Cheers. Yeah. Cheers, Bright Cellars.
Hats off.
Totally impressed. And I'm not easily impressed. So well done.
Yeah. Well, so I think that brings us to the end of our show and time to give some love out to our Patreons.
Our show would not be possible without you, our listener community. To find out more about how you can support Wine to Five show, please go to patreon.com, Wine to Five podcast.
We love our Patreon supporters.
We do.
And we want to give them some special thank yous to our tenacious taster, Jeff E. from the Hilarious Drinking Show, We Like Drinking, and to our It's Not 5 o'clock and We Don't Care listeners, Meg, Clay, John, Andrew, Michelle, and Azwani. We thank you guys for being a vital part of our Wine to 5 listening and sipping, swirling maybe too, the community we have. And just as a reminder, we have a new monthly Patreon drawing. And so starting January 2017, each month we are drawing a winner for a bottle of Albarello Luxury Hand Soap. And that's for all Patreon supporters at the $2 a month Taste Maker listener level and higher. So you can go to our Patreon page for the details about that. That's at patreon.com/wine25podcast.
And if you love Wine to Five, then we know you'll share our show with your friends, online community, and we certainly appreciate all your involvement and feedback. Leave us a burning wine question or comment on SpeakPipe, and iTunes love, always appreciated in the form of a glowing iTunes review as well. For your listening pleasure, whether on iOS or Android, we are also on iHeartRadio. You can come play with us on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, Google+, if you'd like. And also, build your collection of wine books and wine accessories at our online store, also located on our website. Steph?
Val?
Where can we find you out in the web world of social media goodness?
I am on Twitter and Facebook at Albarello Soap and on YouTube at Albarello. And I'm also on Instagram and Pinterest as the Wine Heroine. What about you, Val?
I'm on Twitter also as @WineGala Unboxed and on the Vino with Val Facebook page and on Instagram as Vino with Val. I'm on Pinterest too. I don't go out there a lot, but I'm figuring it out. So Vino with Val on Pinterest. So there you go.
Nice.
So, yeah. So one more thing. Don't forget to use the new hashtag WineOops to share your funny wine moments and embarrassing wine stories on social media. So until next week, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Wine to Five podcast. Be sure to check us out at Facebook/WineTWO5 and tune in next week for more fun and useful sip tips.